and it's like, okay, legend. Like, oh, you want me to do a Zoom call with this guy who's got, you know, and it's like, he's amazing. And then I'm listening to ATO's music, and then they start sending me Justin's beats, and it's just like dream situation. Like, everything's the best shit I've worked on in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, already, I'm just like, it was crazy, dude. Crazy. It just never happens like that.
Damn.
Yeah, and we just got super close, man. So like, we started a group chat, and obviously, bearing in mind it's the middle of lockdown, and we're all kind of.
I don't think, when was the first Zooms we did? Was it like April?
I think it was like
late
May.
June.
May.
Yeah.
It was at the beach.
I think, yeah, me, Johnny, and Atu linked up in like April or March, and then we all, or like Atu introduced us to Steve in like June, probably.
Yeah, that's when Steve sent me the beat, and then we created this group chat, which we ended up calling EP4, which is kind of funny because a lot of people reference like Side A as EP4, and that was just basically the start. And we started like we were chatting like every day. Like, it was sort of like a little hub where we just like get creative, and because of the time difference, I was working a lot very late at night when Justin was up, and when Steve was up. Yeah, it was like morning for Justin and like night for Steve.
Yeah, like all of our Zoom calls have happened within the same 90-minute window of the day.
Yeah.
Like, it's always only works like right here for us. So it got pretty reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when Johnny was in Ireland, we had to like arrange calls across like 4 time zones. Yeah, like Japan, Ireland,
It's still 3 time zones, bro.
New York,
It
and then
feels
London.
different in Ireland.
Oh no! You mean when I was in America?
Yeah.
In LA?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
That was a 4.
That was the 4th. Yeah.
No, there was no matrix that worked for that. It was like,
No, that was
in 2
terrible.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was.
I guess
crazy
like
because, like I said, inclusivity. Like, it was like, next thing you know, Justin was just sharing all of this music, and then now at this point, we're talking to each other about things outside the project, sharing so many influences. Like, everyone started to just turn everyone else on to things that ended up helping us make sense of what we were doing. And like, we're still doing that. It's just like constantly like YouTube link, this interview, this thing. It's just, it never ends. It's like a band.
Because was there any like through line from when you all started, when this sort of group chat came together? Was there any through line for like inspirations or anything that came through? Because for me, the thing that stood out was how cohesive the aesthetic and the sound palette of the whole thing is. You know, it's really stands out. And I was wondering, was there anything in particular that you were going for with that?
I mean, I think at the beginning we decided I'd make a mood board, and like I made a mood board of pictures. I think just pictures, and there was like a stark separation between reality and sort of parallel universes, and wanted to sort of combine them together and build a sort of 3-dimensional world, because I thought it was important to sort of paint a picture that was 3-dimensional of my own experiences. And so we started to sort of share pictures, share sort of ideas of how we related to each other, and it was an opportunity to get to know each other as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk initially from like Atu and I, because we've just been working for so long. So like we were really, I think, trying to explain where Atu was coming from to Steve and Justin, to try and, you know, get that worldview and that desire to create something that was like multifaceted and like occupied like a number of spaces at the same time. Because it really wanted to reflect that, like Atu was saying, like his experience, like which, you know, can't really be reduced into like I'm this or that at any one time. It's always like a multitude of things, and it's complex, and there's highs and lows, and sometimes they overlap and they're at the same time. So we were talking a lot about sound palette, like other artists, like the range of music references that we were passing around at the start went from things like the Scandinavian guys, like the Sad Boys Drain Gang thing, to like OPN, like pop music,
Caroline
like
Polachek, Blood
yeah, it's
Orange.
just a lot of varying spaces and kind of niches of music. And I think that was really helpful actually, because while we definitely knew kind of sonically that we wanted it to feel not all over the place, like all these influences were very important in like unlocking the kind of emotionality we wanted as well.
Yeah, because I think even like for me, hearing some of the way the vocals were processed, and then also like some of the sounds sounded like, you know, like stateside alt pop, like hip hop sort of stuff, but then you have like a D&B breakdown, UK, like, but it still sounded
that was
cohesive.
fun. Yeah, the process was very, like, ideas would have their genesis in you know, in Steve's brain or Justin's brain or my brain or Atu's brain or whatever, and they would kind of get passed around. Like the project files would be sent from one person to another, and everyone kind of dipped in and contributed like across pretty much all the tunes. But there was definitely moments where me and Atu were kind of like the end filter. So I think the muscle twitch beat at the start, when Atu finally sent it to me, he like wrote the whole song and didn't even show me the beat. And then he sent it to me, he was like, yo, this is the idea. And I remember the first time on the phone with Steve, I was like, yo, are you open to like, you know, your like changes on your beats or like other production elements or whatever? And he was like, yeah, totally, I don't mind at all. I was like, okay, cool, the snare is way too American.
Yeah.
We need to change it.
Yeah. So there were little things like that.
So like, yeah, there was definitely like, we were conscious of that, like because of the wide influence base, like we definitely wanted to find the identity and like hold on to it, rather than like let it go a little bit too wild.
Yeah, I mean, I described the whole process as one of discovery, because again, like I hadn't heard really any Drain Gang. Like I knew who Young Lean was, but I was like, all right, let me go do my homework, like on what these dudes are into. Like I was just bringing like what I did, and then I would go try and like figure out where I fit. And then I think personally too, like I remember a tremendous amount of the conversations that Atu and I would have would be these interpersonal, like world, like cultural conversations, and like understanding each other and like seeing where we had common ground in real life. And I think that contributed to like a great deal to like being able to hit the mark and like make the right music. Without that, I don't think you really can. I don't think those two things would have been able to exist separately, especially since Atu's so like emotionally intelligent and like dedicated to having a clear message through the tunes. You're not just like, oh, let me make a fire rap beat. It doesn't really cut it on a project like this. So it was kind of like the exploration is ongoing, I would say, to be honest. And that's what makes it such a amazing.
But yeah, what was important,
be a part of
I think what was important is that early on we were just interested in getting to know each other, and it was a very natural process, and it became like a safe space, which is kind of hard to do virtually. You know, we still haven't even met. Johnny and I still haven't met Justin in person. Steve's come and visited, I think, three or four times now. But it was about building a safe space and being able to work sort of in a relaxed way, so that we could all reach our potential. But yeah, I think we managed to achieve that well, which is a blessing, to be fair, because it wasn't the easiest circumstances, but it never felt like, you know, a disability in any way, being so separated.
Yeah, I think even you know, the last song on the project, it sort of feels like there's some sort of closure there. And was the overall process quite therapeutic for you, because like you wear your heart on your sleeve the whole way throughout that project? I don't think that's something that would be easy to do if you weren't comfortable working with everyone.
Yeah, it was we were figuring out the process from start to finish. Like I didn't know where it was going. None of us knew where it was going. So it met a natural end on Nobu, and the whole process was very retrospective, very three-dimensional. You know, meeting your strengths and your weaknesses, being comfortable to show different aspects of yourself, and you know, in being honest, you have to maybe talk about things that don't necessarily even reflect well on you or reflect well on your world. But it was a therapeutic process that required that level of honesty and openness, and it was really sick to be able to do that together through deep conversations, through making music together, and becoming like brothers over time, essentially, because you know we're super close now. And so yeah, Nobu, it was clear that Nobu was sort of reaching to a point of progression and forward thinking, and that's I suppose where the new music is pointing to now.
Something else that I was going to ask about is, you know, you make a mention of like Garby Way and stuff in one of the songs, and one's named after it. I'm assuming that's somewhere in Yorkshire, like where you lived.
Yeah.
Was there any sort of back and forth in talking about like what it was like growing up in Yorkshire? Just as like, was that an important part of getting everybody to understand your experience so that it would transfer into the music even sonically?
Yeah, I think before I used to write in a way where I wanted to talk about the reality and be very precise in how I described it, growing up there. And I thought actually a lot of my childhood was made up of a big imagination. And so I thought drawing on imagination was also an important way of reflecting where I was at and what that experience was like. Sometimes, you know, your imagination can say a lot about the reality that you live in. So Garby Way is one of these sort of slightly dysfunctional tracks that like Zyman's, that's yeah, it speaks to different parts of my personality, whether like the reality that I'm going through and the imagination that sort of runs parallel to it.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a point at which you wrote out like a lot of your experiences growing up, and to try and get that I guess just so Steve, Justin, and I could all kind of really get into the right kind of, I wouldn't even say headspace because we could never do that, but like kind of feel where you're coming from a little bit more with like some more clarity. I think you was that part of the mood boards you made at the start? I can't remember. But I definitely think at one point you like wrote out a lot of things, like how you went, like you were like about your time like living up there and then living in various spaces.
Yeah, and we had to do it again for the visuals, and because we were working with Austrian directors and we were working with them virtually, so there was a whole like it was like a layered experience. It was just like an onion.
I feel like we got pretty good at like explaining your I guess your path through the artistic process, like because we just have to do it so many times. So yeah, it definitely was an important factor though. Like the places and spaces that you grew up in, like you said, are very like interwoven amongst the imaginative aspects. So even while there's a little bit of a fact versus fiction contrast in moments, it's always pretty rooted in
feeling,
like experiences or traumas or whatever from your life. Yeah, which I think is a powerful thing.
Yeah, like No Caroline, I basically woke up and I had that melody. I think we were here and I was upstairs sleeping, and I woke up and I just had the melody in my head, and that was just done in like 10-15 minutes, the first half. And then the second half of the tune was like a meticulous deep dive into like very detailed parts and of growing up. So yeah.
I can remember multiple places I was when ATO called and told me something about his life, because he was about to have to explain what was about to take place on the recording. So like that whole moment where there's other tunes that maybe aren't out yet, but it's just kind of like, you're about to hear this. And so now I'm going to tell you this incredibly like foundational story of my life, or thing I went through. And I can remember literally like walking to the Thai restaurant on Manhattan when he told me this experience of his life. And so it was very sort of like a real time, a lot of the time, those personal discoveries, and him sort of being like, I don't usually talk about this, maybe I should. And finding the sort of like not the will, but just like the realization that it was the time to address those things. It was just happening like really, especially since we were so far away. You would normally expect that in the room, but we were able to sort of recreate that, I think, long distance.
I thought it was so cool how ATO would like, he would write a lyric line and then be able to like explain like, okay, this is me connecting with this part of my past and like this experience, and like having that kind of like, it was like there was a proper structural reason behind like figurative lyrics, which really like opened me up to the world of songwriting, I guess, and just like writing.
Very personal,
Yeah. I guess we could open up to some questions from people. We've got a few there. So first one there. Yeah. Arsenal are getting absolutely bashed in the chat. Yeah. So what was the most difficult
everywhere?
What was the most difficult or stressful part of the process? Are there any funny stories in passing the tracks around?
What was the most difficult track to do?
Oh, Zymon's is definitely the most difficult track to do.
Oh yeah,
I think Zymon's went through.
There was a moment when we were up in the studio. Steve was over as well, and it must have been about 4 a.m. And I was just like, "This hook is just not right." And we were just like, the general consensus in the room was that it was fine. And then I think we were all ready to go to sleep. You were about to close your laptop, and then I sang
yeah, let me do one more thing.
I was like, let me do one more thing, and then like John just looked at me like, really, and he like was like, yeah, that's got to be the hook now. So we ended up staying up another 2 hours or something. So that track like was yeah.
Revisions. Lots of different hook ideas. I think the beat got like the sections of the beat got swapped around a lot. Different. We tried at different tempos and different pitches.
And then the gang vocals saved the day.
Yeah,
only, and then that became another thing we would keep trying in another spot after that.
Yeah, Zymon's definitely took the longest.
Yeah.
It was funny because that one.
That's when that happened too. The Jules dance in the night, baby. The Todd Dylan performance in the background.
Yeah, delirious.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We got another one here. Where did it go? Yeah. So 3 artists that influenced the project, aside from yourselves, and then they said they almost heard some hyper-popish sounds. It's interesting because every time I listen to this project, I could hear like different influences. So I'd be interested to hear what you just have to say about
that. I'd say maybe we could all say like 3 different people, because I think we've all had our own influences. But for me, I'd say Blade, Ghost Poet, there's a lot. Radiohead, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
Gorillaz.
Yeah, hyperpop definitely is unavoidable. You know, it's what a lot of people are kind of rightfully like looking at as like kind of the cutting edge of pop music. So it was definitely bleeding through, but more so we were, at least on my end, like as you said, Blade, like Playboy Cardi, like the Jetson Maiden, and stuff. Just trying to like strike balances of things that carry weight and energy, in a fresh way. Like how Cardi, like my favorite Cardi music is like the cutest Cardi music, but he's still like saying, you know, his Playboy Cardi shit on top of it, and I think that's like an amazing combination. So that was definitely for me something that I was trying to bring in, and I guess me and Justin were probably contributing the most hyper poppy elements to the process.
I guess for me I'd say probably Drake. And then maybe I was really learning a lot about these guys that they mentioned, but also like Dean Blunt became like a direct influence on it too.
Yeah, Baby Father.
I was just exploring the UK scene so heavily that it was like I was just constantly trying to figure out how to mesh that with what I do, and like Pa Salute was like blowing my mind at that moment. I remember for sure. I was just kind of like, it was all new. I wasn't resting on like my OG influences at all. I was just like, send me things.
Yeah, it's like Drake bars.
Oh yeah, Drake bars in the comments now.
Yeah, for me, I was really listening to Echo 2K's E album a lot, and then
Yeah, that too.
I really liked like Young Good, like Young Lean's and Echo 2K's producer, and just like the way he approaches sonics and stuff. And then yeah, that was a huge inspiration for sure. And then like Johnny said, Playboy Cardi, like I remember around the time we all connected, he put out a song at me, yeah. And just like the way the instrumental is like really smooth and cute, and then his like voice over that was just really sick. And like
I feel like of the songs, like we definitely had a couple songs that were continuously floating around as references, and that was a strong one. I think.
And the No Caroline like original demo was inspired by like Echo 2K's Peroxide and that kind of area, I guess.
Yeah, that's sick. Another one is what inspired the name Side
A. It just felt like it was the beginning of something, you know. It was like this is the start of a new wave of sound, I suppose. You have a better description?
No.
Yeah.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. I think you just made that up, didn't you?
Yeah.
You just made that up.
Yeah.
So I think we probably have time for one more. So we'll go for favorite song from each of you personally that's on the project that someone's just asked.
Yeah. For me, it's No Caroline. Yeah. I felt like that was a very therapeutic like process to be able to sort of dive into the past in that way, and even to this day, like that's the one that sort of stands out to me the most, I think. Yeah, but I do like Nobu. I like them all in different ways, but like probably No Caroline for me.
Yeah, for me it's No Caro. It's probably Nobu and No Caro, pretty neck and neck for favorite for me.
Yeah, I think I'm No Caroline too. Yeah, it's funny because I think I made that like demo during a Zoom class because I would like borrow my grandma's MacBook, and then that would give me like the attendance, and then I'd use my computers to make beats for ATO.
Yeah, it blew my mind when I heard that beat for the first time. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I think No Caro is one of those that you kind of like dream about being a part of, because it's kind of like connecting, even though it's so adventurous and it's like hard left turns. And I think making it was very like the third section was the second section, and then Johnny flipped it and did the drum and bass thing. So like it was. I don't think it's likely that you get to have another experience that was that sort of like explosive and collaborative, and like. And then for that to be like sort of the tune that all these people are gravitating towards, even though it just bucks all tradition entirely. That's kind of like the dream. It's like the art and like resonating at the same time. Like you can't beat that.
Yeah, because it was originally a hip hop transition, so it transitioned at halfway into like a traditional hip hop beat that Steve had made, like New York inspired, and then we were in the studio and Johnny was just like, I just think there should be drum and bass, and me and Steve
I think because you had written your flow,
recorded it.
I'd already recorded
that last verse on top of the way the beat used to be, and I was like, I'm sorry, this needs to be like flipped. And so
then me and Steve just looked at each other as like Johnny was like turning it into a drum and bass track. We're like, this might be too much.
I was remote when that came in, and it was definitely like there was some push and pull on whether to go with it. But
there always is though. But yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end it on. Is there anything you want to shout out before we go? Like, is it on Bandcamp? Maybe it'd be good to give that a plug.
Yeah, it's the Bandcamp. It's the MCMXEV one, I think.
Yeah, if you just search it on Bandcamp, it should come up. We can maybe put the link to buy on your story after the live as well, just so people can go find it if they want.
Yeah, 100. And then you can still get tickets for the live shows, Leeds and London, 4th of October, 5th of October. You can find that in my bio. And Gareth Way videos out soon as well. So that's popping.
Yeah.
Unreal. This has been sick, guys. Cheers for having me as part of this.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Hell
this was fun. My first live stream ever.
Nice.
You can go back to sleep now, Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Much love. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.